Hassan from W3B Solutions, and this is a really great friend of mine, Arsh. He has, he's wearing ton of hats every time he's working on. He has, multiple expertise in the world of Web3, finance, lawyer, and decentralized financing is his everyday cup of tea. And now I'm going to leave it to Arsh to talk about what is he up to, what his company is up to, what are they trying to solve, and it's going to be one of the best sessions with Arsh around the corner. So Arsh, over to you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. So hi, everyone. My name's Arsh. I'm a 28-year-old lawyer, consultant, entrepreneur, and investor. I've been in the crypto and DeFi space most generally for about the last 12 years. I was a pretty early investor in Bitcoin and Ethereum. I loved kind of the technology back in those days. So I've seen the technology grow and seen crypto grow from its infancy. But in most of my work and in most of my business, I do a lot of consulting, and that's around Web3, NFTs, DeFi, blockchain, and crypto, with an additional metaverse component for clients that do look for those things. But I've currently advised startups, hedge funds, cryptocurrency exchanges, and other Web3 related startups on a number of specialized business issues. I've been doing that for about 8 years, and my consultancy is called /6. And that's basically because it's focused on 5 main areas in Web3, so crypto, blockchain, NFTs, DAOs, and the metaverse. I currently strategically advise one of the world's largest DAO exchanges. They have over 2,000 DAOs in their ecosystem. They just closed their Series A round, backed by Mark Cuban Ventures and a few other large venture capital firms. Outside of that, I run my own startup. We're called GlassLink, and GlassLink is owned by a company called the Curate Group, both of which I have co-founded and currently oversee. But GlassLink is actually solving a problem in the $100 billion creator economy, where audience members can't interact with their favorite brands on traditional social media. And so we're essentially solving the intellectual property exchange problem and allowing intellectual property to be instantly bought, sold, and licensed using Web3 and blockchain for the creator economy. Our, proprietary solution is focused on using blockchain to expedite that settlement process, but it's also expediting the legal process for licensing creative intellectual property. We've been trying to solve this problem as no company in the world currently does it. Most companies rely on traditional legal documents to outsource licensing and provide a creative solution for intellectual property, but no solution out there is currently using our settlement mechanism, which is patent pending, and has kind of the brand reach and expertise that our team brings to the table. On our founding team, there's myself. We also have a chief operating officer that was previously working with companies including Disney and HSBC. We have a strategy officer from Harvard Business School. We have a chief marketing officer from Cornell University, who's also worked with Adidas and New Balance. And we have advisors from HBO and NBC Universal. So we're in our sort of early stages right now. We're actually in our first seed round and trying to, develop our marketing strategy and also start going to venture capital firms.
Oh, that's really impressive. I mean, you guys are really getting into the seed funding, right? I mean,
yeah.
What's the plan behind it? How are you guys trying to, work on the intellectual property rights? I mean, how are you using the blockchain technology?
So it's very interesting, right? I think intellectual property today, especially as it relates to Web3, is predominantly focused on the NFT market. And we're actually taking a very stealth Web3 approach. Most of our marketing materials don't talk about Web3. They don't use buzzwords like blockchain or crypto, because we believe that for mass adoption of these technologies, they shouldn't really be talked about. Web3 adoption for the creative industry and for influencer markets isn't at the forefront yet. If you tell an influencer or a creative about NFTs, they think that it's a scam. They think that there's a negative sentiment around crypto right now. So, and that's in some part based on the state of the market at this stage, but more so because there's just a distrust in those technologies. So part of what we're doing is trying to reframe the narrative around utility of Web3 and really understanding how it can be useful and scalable. The vast majority of issues right now rely on the fact that Web3 is I guess negative in its social value, but also negative from an investment value. So if you go and talk to venture capital, of course, all the biggest companies, all the biggest VCs are trying to raise Web3 funds and trying to incubate these promising startup ideas. But the general narrative in the consulting world is that Web3 has a long way to go. Studies by Accenture and PwC talk about the metaverse. They talk about these emerging technologies, but they're not always as promising as they make out. Case in point, Meta and the Facebook group of companies and Mark Zuckerberg have tried to sort of push the metaverse into the mainstream, but haven't been successful in doing so, mainly because smaller firms, smaller companies, and smaller businesses don't want that tech adoption yet. They're more comfortable in the Web2 sphere in traditional social media, such as Google, Twitter, and Instagram. But where our platform, GlassLink, and where our company, the Curate Group, try to sort of fill that gap is bridging Web2 to Web3 and assisting in that transition in a natural way. And we found that intellectual property is the biggest pain point for the creative industry. Licensing is always a problem. If you look at NFT collections, for example, one that Snoop Dogg, a popular hip hop artist and Bored Ape Yacht Club holder, has put out regarding his music, you see that intellectual property gets remixed in the music industry. And that's not necessarily profitable. And it's also difficult to ascertain who actually owns that intellectual property, who owns those remixed works in the music industry, and moreover, what that sort of royalty split looks like. So he's trying to sort of blend this traditional entertainment approach with a Web3 focus, but it's not working very well. And because it's not working very well for huge brands, we're creating an opportunity for any audience member to become their own creator. You know, there's a new trend going around right now where people in the creative industry, people in these sort of niches can start their own businesses, right? Any audience member can be a creator, any audience member can start a business. And we're seeing this real shift from creator and artist to business owner. That's really, I think, pushed by a lot of these creators getting into the NFT space and celebrities getting into the NFT space now.
I mean, yeah, it's the point that, every influencer and every, celebrity is trying to get into the Web3 space, but the only thing that's still not being fulfilled by every, business owner is the IPOs, right? Stages when they, try to create their own copyrights or so. How do you think this transition is going to, because there are copyrights everywhere. Every time there is a copyright violation or so. So how do you think your company would be ever able to reduce that gap among?
Sure. So in terms of our process, right, and I'll talk a little bit about product without giving too much away, considering that we're under NDAs as well. So in terms of process and product, what we aim to do is create a virtual environment. I'm not going to say metaverse. I'm not going to say anything 3D related because we're not trying to take that focus, but create an environment that allows for the free exchange of intellectual property and purchase of intellectual property by brands. And so our patent pending mechanism actually enables two things. The first thing that it enables is a free exchange of ideas from the audience member to the brand. And the second thing that it enables is settlement. So we envision a sort of lockup period through which a brand can purchase intellectual property, but a brand can also license and close legal agreements. So it's kind of an all-in-one solution that says, hey, a brand will want to purchase a certain piece of intellectual property for licensing or a complete buyout, and in tandem also undergo the legal transfer of that intellectual property. We're using sort of Web3 blockchain related technologies to do this. We have a sort of proprietary team based out on the east side of the world that has that sort of technology, and the product itself is being built out. But we're really aiming to increase security with intellectual property transfer. The biggest problem that we see is that people can rip ideas off, anywhere. That's very prominent in the NFT space. Understanding Creative Commons 0 and the NFT, intellectual property licensing rights around projects like Moonbirds and projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club and Invisible Friends, creators and audience members can't necessarily make a tangible profit off of that intellectual property licensing because it's now sort of open source. People like Kevin Rose, people like the Bored Ape Yacht Club founders have all tried to promote this in the spirit of open transparency in Web3 and very much fitting into the sort of Web3 ethos. But I think predominantly creators and audience members are losing out on that freedom of creativity. It's actually being limited, even though it's becoming more open. And that's a little bit of an oxymoron. It's a little bit of a paradox, but you're actually limiting that creative freedom because resources are vast and anybody can use them. Yeah, you could argue that it's creating permutations and combinations of intellectual property and saying, hey, anybody can remix this and anybody can do that. But remember, right, Web3 is about ownership. Web3 is not necessarily about recreation, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Arsh, after this Ethereum merge took place, right? So do you think that has any impact on the business you're in? Or the
I don't think it does. Sure, I don't think it does. And it's mainly because we're still focusing on a Web2 payments model for our transfer of intellectual property. We're offering traditional options, including ACH payments, including credit cards, debit cards. Of course, any sort of traditional payment processing mechanism, because we do believe that that's where the vast majority of the world is still. So that, I think that's a little bit of a backwards approach than most sort of Web3 focused companies are taking. But we do plan to offer crypto integration with a payment structure, depending on what a brand would want, right? If you look at Nike and Adidas, Nike did 130 million last year on their CloneX collection, right? They've made tons and tons of money on NFTs. They've collected tons and tons and tons of Ethereum, right? So I think we're going to be open to that as related to the Ethereum merge. Of course, Ethereum is probably going to eventually increase in price due to the fact that supply is getting burned now post-merge, and we're moving to a new consensus mechanism. But I don't think that's directly affecting our business and kind of where we plan to insert ourselves, as crypto integration will probably factor in down the line.
Great. That was one of the questions. Before we call our guests, we run a quick survey. There are questions, and filter out the best questions we have. Okay, so going to move towards the second question is that, your business is purely blockchain, right? So is it somewhere related to decentralized financing part as well? Or you guys are creating your own, token system or so?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, right? If you look at the vast majority of Web3 projects and Web3 communities, the real tangible benefit to membership is always around some sort of token or NFT. We've decided to actively go against that paradigm because one, we don't think token warrants are effective for VCs. VCs in that ecosystem in terms of fundraising always want to get a token warrant, always want to get an allocation. And if they decide to exit a project, that could damage the company's valuation in the long term. So we've actively decided to go against distributing a token, going against any sort of ICO or IDO mechanism at this stage, because we're fundamentally focused on the technology and building out a good community, number one, and a good product, number two.
Okay, so you're technically saying you're against the tokenization system. So don't you think people are gonna, at the end of the day, they're gonna, ask businesses to get into the token system because they find it quite more feasible than using the fiat money for their own business transaction system? Because I think the fact that it's a decentralized financing system.
Yep, I think crypto, I think there's a difference here, right? And I want to clarify this distinction, right? Crypto integration versus token issuance are two different things. So crypto integration for payments, yes, I am a proponent of that. I think it's fair and valuable to be used as a payments mechanism, but token issuance on the basis of product and on the basis of any sort of proprietary token that a secondary market would assign value to, whether that's an NFT, whether we're issuing or creating a coin that's going to go into a liquidity pool on some sort of DEX. I think that is what I'd be against, considering that it could damage the valuation. So let's say, for example, let's say we had a VC come in, a venture capital come in and want to provide a safe agreement, right? Which is a simple agreement for future equity in which they give us cash and we give them future equity in the project. If they had said, hey, you're going to issue a token, please give us X number of the token that you plan to issue, right? I have zero control over the secondary market value of that token. I do have control over cash, right? Cash is $1 is always going to be $1, right? So in that sense, a traditional simple agreement for future equity with cash is simpler, and that makes sense from a fundraising perspective, right? For us to then issue a token and offer that sort of liquidity and have that token be traded on a liquidity pool somewhere on some decentralized exchange, I wouldn't have control over how that would work. I wouldn't be able to guarantee the VC that their investment in that token would be solid and would remain the same as it was at the outset. And by extension, let's say that token decreases or stays low in value, a venture capitalist would be inclined to exit, right? To dump those tokens on the open market, cash out and say, okay, great. You know what? Like this token clearly didn't take off. The project might, but that could also damage our working relationship with them, the reputational risk that we have, and block us off from future funding rounds.
Because that was the mostly question that people, when they talk about crypto, they're like, okay, we're going to use a token system. So that's one clarification. This another question, Arsh, was what would you prefer, if you are going to advise another Web3 business? I mean, either they're going to go use the fiat money just to make exchanges or invent their own crypto system, keeping the fact that they're still they're training people, they have their own edtech platform. What would you advise those startups?
Sure. So I think there's two pieces, right? If this was any sort of other Web3 startup that wanted to issue a token, I think that's totally fine. They should also be aware of the tax implications of that. So I also have a background in tax outside of cryptocurrency and law. I also have a tax background, and I've done a lot of cryptocurrency tax reconciliation, especially within the United States. So if they're a US-based business, if they're a US-based company in that sense, like for example, let's say they're a C corporation that's established and domiciled in Delaware or Wyoming or any one of the major US states that sort of has that sort of framework, I think it would be beneficial for them to understand what the capital gains would be on any sort of crypto collected. So for example, let's say I'm a Web3 startup. Let's say I'm taking payments, and a Web3 startup could also mean an NFT project, mind you, right? Let's say I'm taking payments for a mint in Ethereum, or and there's different tiers, right? Let's say there's a pre-sale, there's a public sale, there might be a whitelist, right? There's different mint prices for that Ethereum sold to me, and that's collected by me as a company. But let's say I dump that Ethereum on the open market at different dates. Now, the capital gains estimation is based on the price of Ethereum that I had when that Ethereum was given to me by the minter, or the person wanting to mint my NFT project, and that gain that's actually accrued between me collecting that Ethereum and selling it for cash and holding those cash reserves openly, right? Most NFT projects will actually hold the Ethereum long term, right? And that might be beneficial right now because we're in a bear market. Ethereum's going down. If they decide to dump it, the price at which they dump it could be lower than the price they acquired it at, which in that case would allow you to report a loss. So I would say that there's benefits there in terms of holding crypto and holding that from a business perspective. Fiat does allow you to tap into the Web2 side of things and tap into a wider user base. 90% of the world, I would say, still has no idea what an NFT is. If you look at traditional YouTube videos, you look at late night talk shows, you'll see these panels where they go around and ask people on the street, do you know what an NFT is? And everyone says, I have no idea, right? So we're signifying that this small community of Web3 builders is still very much at the early stages of crypto adoption, NFT adoption, and adoption of these new technologies. So I think a fiat pathway is beneficial for a business owner. I wouldn't say completely discredit it and try to go all in on your small market segment. Let's say 7% of the world knows what Web3 is, knows what crypto is, uses crypto actively. And 93% of the world, let's say, uses fiat actively. Would you really want to close yourself off from 93% of the market? I don't think so, right? If you're a small business, your goal is scale and your goal is growth. And that's through marketing, and that's also through money, right? You want to make more money. So having a fiat channel is always preferred. I don't think it's something that Web3 projects should be so quick to close out.
Yeah, that's the thing that most people don't understand, right? Like you mentioned the stats that half of the people, I mean, not even half, I mean, 97% of the people are still getting into this industry, like 94% are still not aware of it. Okay, so another question, I mean, I think that's gonna be the last question. The proper question is, so Harsh, what would you prefer for a startup company to work on? Either they pursue Ethereum transaction or they should stick away with Binance, keeping the fact that both are for market, like hitting the market ratio right now.
I'm sorry, Shabazz, can you repeat your question? I didn't hear you.
Okay, so the question was, there are most of the companies or most of the businesses who are into this Web3 business, they're working forward to use Ethereum as a transaction point, or they're using Binance or Solana. What would you suggest them to work on, keeping the fact that Binance is quite expensive too?
Sure. So I think Ethereum is probably the main standard here. I would say Ethereum is the golden standard blockchain to have a project operate on. Solana is nice. I think Solana as an ecosystem is very much sort of Gen Z. If you had to really look at these things generationally, Ethereum is more for millennials and Gen X, and Solana and later ecosystems are more towards Gen Z. And I think the real question that I would say and I would ask is, who's your target market, right? Are you trying to target your Web 2.5, Web 2.8 blue chip cryptocurrency buyers? Because your blue chip buyers are going to be buying Bitcoin and Ethereum in tranches. They're going to be buying large market buys of those because they have old money and they have lots and lots of cash to burn. So I think from a profitability standpoint, yes, fine. Gas on Ethereum might be more expensive than something like Solana. Transaction speed, hopefully with the new POS consensus mechanism after the merge, might be even better on Ethereum. So that's a value add here now that we're post merge. But I think it really depends. If you want to be a first mover in the Solana ecosystem, I think there's plays that you can make there. But just understand that the vast majority of the market between blockchains is solely focused on Ethereum at this stage. We have the merge narrative that's still strong. We have OpenSea, which as an NFT platform has a higher proportionate value of Ethereum-based NFT projects than Solana-based NFT projects. So that's something to also understand. And remember, you also have old money that traditionally buy Ethereum and Bitcoin. We've seen news reports of families putting their entire net worths into Bitcoin or Ethereum. There's much more of a broader market narrative around Ethereum than there might be around Solana.
Right, so you're gonna prepare people to work on Ethereum rather than, if in the future if it's Solana, it's gonna be Solana, but at the point it's Ethereum.
Yeah.
So, Harsh, I think we're just right around the corner. Another question was just, I mean, what would you, suggest people to get into Web3 business? I mean, people are still doing a good business in Web2 and Web 2.8 as well. Why would you suggest them to get into Web3 as well?
So Web3 in and of itself as a tool and as an ecosystem offers one thing, and that's decentralization, right? Decentralization is the one facet of Web3 that's unmatchable in Web 2, Web 2.5, Web 2.8. We're actually empowering ownership amongst a community. Web3 is not a Discord server. Web3 is not an NFT project. Web3 is about understanding true peer-to-peer value connection and value creation. That is where Web3 projects find value. I don't believe your Web3 project is about the size of your Discord server. It could be 100 people, it could be 50 people. But this is kind of what we're trying to solve as well with our business, right? Understanding the free flow of ideas between even a small community and really how powerful that is, right? There's a really good saying, you only need one person to change the world. Even if you're affecting the life of one person, that's still meaningful change. I think a lot of big problems that I see with Web3 right now, people are trying to go too big, too fast. They're trying to scale Discord servers. You see Twitter accounts full of spam bots, full of comments, full of the latest NFT shill trying to get on whitelists. And that's kind of also why crypto Twitter in and of itself as an ecosystem is damaging to the narrative that we're also trying to promote here. So I think that's the real big value add from a Web3 advice standpoint. Start small, acquire your first users, and build a good product for those people, right? You want to make sure that you're solving an actual problem. and you're affecting an actual industry. Don't just create an NFT project to create an NFT project. Don't just create an NFT project to make money, because chances are you're already you're a needle in a haystack, right? There's hundreds of thousands of NFT projects. They all promise the same roadmap. They all promise the same utility, the same timeline. NFT projects, not a good place to start with Web3. Not a good place to start a Web3 business or consulting. My consulting services, as I said before, I offer, about 10 to 12 years of consulting experience. I've worked with some of the largest brands in the world. I've worked with some of the largest educational institutions, including Harvard, Stanford's blockchain group, and the Oxford Internet Institute. So I'm always around as a resource. I'll be sure to pass along my social media information and LinkedIn information to you. But that's really the biggest piece that I would really offer to anyone wanting to start a business today.
Okay, great. Just one last question we have. I swear that we are done. The question was, Arsh, what's your favorite food? What's your why? I mean, why did you start such? You're just not a founder of one company. You're a founding member of other companies in the future to come, and you're founding member of the present company. So why did you do it? I mean, what's your why?
Yeah, so I think my why is really understanding the issues with idea exchange. One of the biggest problems in Web3 is ideas. Nobody knows how to actually create ownership. People have tried to tokenize that ownership through NFTs, but that's not always a simple way to do it. People can't make money from their ideas. YouTube doesn't allow you to make money from your ideas. Instagram doesn't allow you to make money from your ideas. If I'm an audience member in Instagram or a follower of, let's say, a very famous account on Instagram, and I give that person an idea in the comment section, can I monetize that? No. Can I get paid for it? No. Do I have real ownership over what contribution I've just made to this celebrity? No, I don't. And Web3 and our platform actually allows audience members to do that. This is a new way to get paid for your ideas. It's giving that power back to the audience, because in and of itself, a lot of these celebrities would be nowhere if it wasn't for their audience, if it wasn't for their fans, if it wasn't for the communities that have supported them all these years. So for us, we're really powering that new generation of fan-driven, intellectual property and really the experience economy, right? What sort of economy do we want to give to audiences? What sort of empowerment do we want to create for the people? And that's really the fundamental nature of why I'm doing what I'm doing right now.
And that's really summed it up. And I really love the idea. I mean, the example that you gave, just about the use of Instagram, and it's really amazing just to put things forward in a simple place for the people who really want to reach out to. Okay, so Arsh, what's the best platform to reach out to you if someone wants to reach you out after consultation, social media, your LinkedIn? You can just
sure. So I'd be more than happy to give you my Twitter. Twitter's always a good place to reach out, and then I'll also give you my LinkedIn as well. I think you probably have that.
Yeah.
But if so, I'll also give you a website. We have a contact form on there, and anyone that's interested can reach out there as well.
Great. That's pretty much it, Arsh. Okay, so anything else you just want to say about to our viewers, to our audience, regarding anything you have?
Nope, I think I'm pretty much free and clear. If anyone has questions, wants to reach out, have a conversation about Web3, or is looking for consulting services, mentorship, or business advice, I'm always open. My inbox is always open. You could always reach out to me on LinkedIn or other mediums. But thank you so much. And thank you, Shabazz, for tuning in with me today. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Exactly. Arsh, thank you so much for coming and sparing some time from your schedule and having on the show. So,
awesome.
Okay. So thank you, guys. This was Arsh. You can reach out to him anytime you want to have consultation, have business advice. He's legit awesome person at this. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.